As of today, the Windows Preview build is available for release. So what we want to do is explain to you how to get that. Go through the hoops you've got to jump through to do that. But before you download it and try to install it, the first thing you need to do is to clone, image, or back up your system. Now we're going to also run this test on a laptop. We run it on 3 computers. And the test I'm talking about, the first thing you need to do after you've done the clone, image, and backup, we'd strongly encourage you, do not put this on a production machine. If you do, be sure you're not on just a separate partition, but that you're on a separate drive. Why is that? Well, they call this beta, but this is really alpha. So the next question is, well, when will Windows 11 actually be available for the rest of us? That's a crystal ball forecast, but based on a historical perspective, my guess is going to be 6 months. In 6 months, that's going to be the next CES. And that's where Windows 11, whether that's a trade show that's going to be virtual or whether it's going to be a real trade show, but Windows 11 is going to be the topic. So what we need to focus on is the test. Now, we can use Microsoft's test, and I'm going to show you some of the information because today being the 28th, and this was originally discussed by Microsoft on the 24th, they have now said we can get our hands on the Windows Preview build. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that. But there's a test you need to run. You can run Microsoft's test or another test that a developer's come up with. He's updating it regularly. I would encourage you to support him on his efforts. That is a more complete test. It has better clarity. And as we go through the hierarchical structure, there's 2 things you need to be aware of. 1, your CPU, and number 2, TPM. Now, TPM has to be version TPM 2.0. We're going to have details about TPM initialization in a separate video. For this, we want to talk about this test. We're going to run this test. We're going to show you the different results. Because if your CPU doesn't qualify, then forget about worrying about TPM. And by the way, you don't have to buy a TPM chip. You've probably got firmware that'll support it. So, what are the requirements? Glad you asked. If your computer is 3 years old or newer, it's probably going to work. If it's 3 years older or more, it's probably not going to work. Now we've tested this on 3 computers. We're going to test it on the 4th computer, and this is a laptop, and this would be about a 4-year-old computer, and we're going to compare and see what it'll do. I don't think it's going to run on this laptop, but I want to find out because in the next video coming up, after we talk about TPM initialization, then we're going to take a look at 7 different laptops. And for those that are wondering about that video, all of those laptops, both AMD and Intel, will have TPM capability, although they don't mention it. Once we go through this, you'll understand. Now there's an article on the Verge I want to show you, and they've done a real good job of documenting this. This just came out today. Again, you can run Microsoft's test. There's another test I'm going to show you that we're going to run. The first thing you'll need to do is to enroll in the Windows Insider program. Then on your computer, navigate to Settings, Update and Security, Windows Insider program on a Windows 10 device to enable the developer channel and obtain the Windows 11 builds. And remember, this is preview, so think of this kind of like alpha. Stuff is not all functional, but you can see some of what's going on, some things a lot of us are not going to like. But kicking and screaming, because of the 3-year rule, there's a lot of computers I think are going to be made obsolete for no reason other than this, which may make you have another reason to look at another operating system. We'll have a link up for something on that. But these instructions that we've just provided, this will also be up in the description, so it'll make it easy for you to find. Let's take a look at the results of the test. The first computer we tried this on, first was an AMD FX 8350, and that is the results. The architecture for the CPU is fine, boot method is fine, but the CPU, an AMD 8350. Because that particular processor is about an 8-year-old processor, it's not going to work. Now, it's supposed to be an 8-core processor. The test here says the CPU core count. The purpose of this test, based on what Microsoft says, and he updates this regularly, says that this CPU is not compatible. This is about an 8-year-old machine. So Nathaniel, I'm glad you're building a new computer. You got your video card cool. And by the way, folks, this is Builder By. My name's Gil Boyd. I want to thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at the next computer. Now these results are on a 4-year-old computer. So this says this is a 64-bit. Boot method right now is Legacy. Now this computer is an AMD Ryzen 1800X. It's 8-core, 16-thread. This is 4 years old. So it says CPU compatibility, a Ryzen 7 1800X. Okay, how does that figure into the scheme of things? Okay, that particular processor is an 1800X. That processor is about 4 years old, and that is a Ryzen 2nd generation 1800X. Now, for a 3-year-old CPU, if this were a 2000 or newer, it'd work. But because it's an 1800, it's not going to work, which is a real bummer. There's no point in going down through the rest of the list. with the rest of that list being the TPM. Now the other stuff that it wants to know about is it has to be a unified EFI BIOS. It has to be GPT. You can't have an MBR disk. And secure boot has to be there, but it does not have to be enabled. It just has to be supported. Okay, that's two computers, an 8-year-old computer and a 4-year-old computer. Now let's look at a 3-year-old computer. Now this computer is an AMD X399 Aorus Extreme. This is a 2950 processor. So on this machine we have 16 cores, 3 years old. We have the 64-bit architecture. Right now the boot method on that is legacy. That would have to be changed. 16 cores, 32 threads. DirectX is good. Partition type. GPT is not enabled. It's got an MBR. That has to be changed. Secure boot was not detected because it is not enabled. That has to be changed, and the TPM. So as you can see, we need to go through this list and itemize all these things that we need to do before we even think about trying to get on the developers list to download, install, and try to run this new Windows 11 build. So I'm taking you through this stuff to itemize it so you can see what we're looking at. Now, first thing I want to do on this is run this on a live computer. This is an HP Envy 17T. A lot of people have been interested in this laptop. 4 cores, 8 threads. Let's see what it can do. It's about a 4-year-old computer. I have a good idea what's going to happen, but we need to run it. Now, MS Power User has a link to this application. WhyNotWin11, and this is on GitHub. We'll have this in the description. I've downloaded the tool, and I've got my 3 screenshots that you've looked at. We're going to run this tool and see what happens. Now, you may get a screen like this about user account control. There's another screen that may pop up, Microsoft in blue, that says the application is not safe not to run it. Run it. No problem running it. Program is safe. Now, this is looking at it, and this is interesting. 4 cores, 8 threads. This is a 4-year-old computer, and this is the HP Envy 17T. I did not expect this to work. We're good on the architecture. We're good on the boot method, unified EFI. CPU compatibility is good, and this is 4 cores, 8 threads. GPT is detected. Now, it says TPM on here, TPM 2.0 is not detected, but it says TPM version OK. What we would need to do is go into the BIOS and enable that feature. Now, 4-year-old computer, I didn't expect that to work. It works. This is 4 days. I've had just enough time to pull some information together to share with you guys so you know what I know. Now, the next video, we're going to talk about TPM, and I will show you in a BIOS what this TPM thing is, because there's 2 ways to go with TPM. It can be hardware or it can be firmware. But this video was all about the Windows 11, seeing if you could install. First, you need to run the test and see if it'll work. Run this test. You can run Microsoft's test. I like this test better. And this is Why Not Windows 11. We'll also have a link up to the GitHub link so you can go straight to it, or you can follow the article. It's Why Not Windows 11. So coming up in this next video, we're going to talk about TPM initialization. Do not go run out and buy one of those chips, because you've probably got it in your firmware. We just have to turn it on. Once it's turned on, it's functional. It's a hassle. I think it's going to obsolete a lot of computers for no reason at all. But as you've seen, this is a 4-year-old computer. So a 3-year-old to 4-year-old computer, it just depends. Run the test, find out, and get yourself ready, because you may need a new computer. And the list of computers we're going to be looking at for content creation, so we can do editing, rendering, and streaming, live streaming. So coming up in this next video, we're going to talk about TPM initialization. I want to thank everybody for watching. We're on to the next video. We're out.